Do you feel something huge on the horizon?
Oh, absolutely. We're in for very big changes with the changes of the nodes and as a collective. We've been talking about this a lot in the ISFM in our morning group that we need to make room for what's coming in, because what's coming in is not what we're used to. And we have to be open to that change. And what is it with most people? We resist change, because it's fear. We'd rather stick with what we know, even if it's toxic sometimes, because we know how to navigate that. Toxic is familiar, and as sick as that sounds, we tend to do that a lot of times as people. It's like, because people are like, why do people always go back to their ex? Or why do they stay in that bad relationship? Because, again, with these weird word analogies, the devil you know is better than the devil you know.
Do you feel...
Welcome, everyone, to Mind, Body, and Soul on www.witchcrafttv.online. We are fair representation for all pagan witch and magic paths. Joanne, nice to have you on. Are you feeling better?
Yes, I am, actually. Thank goodness. Now that, it's always Mercury retrograde with me when I do anything. So, had a little sound issue. Don't know what that was about.
Right.
But I'm glad we figured it out. How are things going with you? You've accomplished quite a bit this week. Congratulations on becoming officially a 401 or 501c3. That's a huge, huge thing. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Well, we didn't get a 503(c) by itself. We actually got a blanket from an affiliate from Tree of Life Sanctuary, which is Tolis, which is a pagan community, probably 30 to 40 minutes, I believe, north of where we are in Centralia, Washington. But what we did get is nonprofit status with the Secretary of State in Washington. So we did get that. And now we're going to be moving forward. We have established an EIN number, all foreign stuff to me, never heard of it. But we were just trying to protect the integrity and longevity of what is Witchcraft TV. So, yeah, lots of good stuff that's been going on. We also broadcasted live from Stonehenge with Alexander Cabot hand fasting. And while they did that, they had the spring equinox ritual that they did preliminary to the hand fasting, because after the equinox celebrations up there, they kind of went to the side and did the actual hand fasting. So that was very exciting. And I'm pretty sure that no one in our immediate community has ever broadcasted live on an online television station from Stonehenge. So that's all breakthroughs. And we can look forward to a monthly show, an educational show with the first priesthood of the Cabot tradition right here on Witchcraft TV.
That is excellent. That is excellent. And that's a lot to be proud of. How are you feeling with all that? It's kind of a lot to process, right?
Yeah, it's a lot to process. A lot, stuff's going on. Keep in mind, if you're watching Mind, Body, and Soul, if you like an oracle reading with Joanne on Mind, Body, and Soul, go ahead and leave it in the comments with your question. We'd love to hear. And this is our what we do for the community. I also just had a recent birthday where I turned 44, and you know what? I put down tobacco and. I haven't smoked.
How are you doing with that? I want to do that.
Well, I am going through it, and so there's that. So it's just one of those things. And another innovation with Witchcraft TV, if you're watching, is Chris Copeland, who sits on the Witchcraft TV board, is going to be implementing a book club. And that's a new innovative show that's happening on the station soon.
Nice.
So if you have, ideas, if you're an author, reach out to Chris Copeland in those regards, because it's kind of an innovative show that's happening, which is really, really cool. I know that there's talks of the Fun Festival show with AC Fisher Aldag interviewing Tish Owens from Pagan Unity Festival coming soon, and that's kind of really cool.
Yes.
Also, we're also going to be diversifying the station a little bit more. When we say fair representation, we mean it, and we're going to be interviewing some Christo pagans. And I'm thinking maybe a block for Christo pagans might be accessible. There's actually a author from Christo paganism that is traveling from Portland, Oregon, right here to Centroa for an on-site interview with Witchcraft TV about her works. So that's
and what do you mean by it? What do they just strictly work with crystals? Is
Christo pagan? They're like Christo pagans. It's a new endeavor for me. It's a learning curve for me too. I feel like they are kind of taking the Abrahamic cast of characters and implementing that into a form of polytheism. I'm not sure exactly how they do that, but I mean, I'm willing to have them on the platform and ask all the questions because, if we're really going to be fair representation of all pagan paths, I think that the Christo or Christian pagans, are part of that equation. So we're going to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
So learning curves across the board. If you're just watching and you would like a oracle reading, let us know in the comments, and we'd love to have that going on. So
I did pull a card for the collective.
Cool.
And for the collective, we have I trust the wisdom within. And that's a very powerful card because, a lot of times as people, especially, and I hate using the East and West analogy. However, in Western society, we're taught to listen to our ego and think about our mind. And, our ego likes to fight us. And what does it like to do? It likes to say, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? It likes to play those old tapes and remind you of things and bring you to places that you don't like to go. And what I tell people is we have to start paying attention, not just to what our mind tells us when we think about something, but our bodies and our spirit. We need to be guided by the whole, what are you feeling overall? You're taking on a new endeavor and your mind is telling you, this is risky, but your heart is saying, do it, like, how do you discern? And you always trust the wisdom within, because obviously spirit operates from where? It operates from your heart chakra, and anything from your heart chakra is going to be pure. We blossom from the inside out, as we go through life. So what you want to do is you want to start to learn to trust that guidance. You want to pay attention to what spirit in the higher realms are telling you. Your third, notice the third eye is focused right here. Intuition, follow your intuition. If you're guided to do something, then always trust your gut. That's what I say. And that's the message for the collective this week. I trust the wisdom within. So if your wisdom is telling you, this isn't right, it doesn't feel good, go with that. If it's telling you, I don't care what these voices are saying, I want to do this, pay attention to that as well, because that is also very important in moving on through life. So that's where we stand right there. We also just went through the full moon and the eclipse, which was a very big thing. It's brought about profound changes for a lot of people. I've had a lot of people just long-term relationships ending, careers, changing careers, education, people like changing career track, or, what they were studying, or their general practices. You're going to see a lot of shakeups in these areas right now. And, we also have, like I said, and all these planets are squaring Mars, because you got Venus retrograde. Hello, my friend Mercury retrograde, and all these things playing out, and they're all opposing Mars. So there's also a lot of fire energy, which is good and bad. Fire energy gives you that forward momentum to want to go out and do things. Aries is the sign of, they go out there, they just do it, they get it done. They're fast, they just get right in it, and that energy gives you the spark. So when you're working on something or creating something, it's a good time to take that leap. But you also have Mars opposing, and Mercury is also in retrograde. So what you got to do is pay attention to the details. So before you start anything, review, reflect before you respond to anybody, because people are just going to be, their tempers are going to be whatever. Go out there and step back before you speak, and make sure, that, you don't want to get caught up in the Mars energy on that level. You want to use that Mars energy to help bring things forward, but you don't want to use it to tear things down. And it's very easy to do that.
Sandra Crockett, thanks so much for walking Mind, Body, and Soul on Witchcraft TV. If anybody's watching and you would like an oracle reading from Joanne, just say so in the comments, and we'd love to get that going for you. Trusting the wisdom within. So it's kind of like my poor lungs were like wheezing, like, quit smoking, Harold, and it's going to kill you. Trust yourself.
No, that's, but what does our body say? No, smoke more. We want that cigarette. You know what I mean? It's get where I'm going with that. You need to really go with what your inner wisdom is telling you on that. Your inner wisdom is going, hey, this doesn't feel right. And, we need to stop now. We've had a good run. And, that's a perfect example right there of, and that's a battle a lot of people fight,
So tell me about Joyful Empowerment. Tell me about Inside the Sacred Circle with your co-host, Jim. Tell me about what's been going on.
Joyful Empowerment is going through a rebirth of its own. Great timing during Mercury retrograde. Blog Talk Radio is no longer a thing. So I had to, and I guess Hercules, Facebook did something, and he's no longer on the platform. He's on some other platform, I believe. I think it might be something with an M, Mastodon, I think, or Metacon, or some kind of other platform. So he gave me the option to keep the show and do what I wanted with it. And I said, I thanked him for that. But I also want to keep him in the loop and give him the content, because he was the person that first believed in my journey on this podcasting route. He's the one that kind of guided me into it, and so I'll always be a Mount Olympus person, so I'm trying to figure out how to set up the streams and then send them to him, and he will put them on his platform. And that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Jim is supposed to work with me on being able to set up my own StreamYard streams, because he's so busy with his job. Because we share a StreamYard account. He's so busy with his job, and I hate bothering him all the time. So I want to be able to just do that. I could do it through Zoom, but then it won't be live, and a lot of people like the live option. If I do it through Zoom or even through StreamYard, I could do a bunch of streams whenever I want, and then send them to Hercules to use whenever he wants for that spot for Joyful Empowerment. I can send them to you. I can send them to whoever. I also have that option with Zoom. However, I don't know if you can work Zoom live or not. but it would give me a recording that I can give to everybody. So I'm trying to figure all that out right now. My guest this week is Terry Corson.
Okay.
She is a gifted energy worker, medium, and she does ley lines. She does all kinds of different cool things. She does the soul tea that I post a lot. So she is my guest this week on Joyful Empowerment. Next week, or no, the first week of April, we have, I think it's April 2nd, maybe. We have Mark Angelo Lyons coming on. He was one of my mentors, and he's coming on to be interviewed. And he is a very gifted tarot reader, practicing witch, and he is been around for years in the New York area. And he is just a very fun person to talk to. And I've got a whole line of guests, that I need to get booked. I have Janice that I want to book. She said she wanted a book for May, our friend there, Janice. And then I have, who else on deck? I have Hector Salva on deck. I have Rhonda Allen. I have I'm going blank now because I'm on the spot to say it. I don't have my notebook with me, but I have a lot of names that I'm coordinating with. So we got a lot of good stuff coming up. I believe, I don't want to misquote, but I believe Jim is trying to get Byron Ballard to come inside the Sacred Circle, which would be great. I have another indigenous shaman coming in as well. David Hollowbone. He's popped in on here every once in a while to talk more about that type of spirituality and the unity movement that's going on with the rainbow prophecies and all that, which is going to be really interesting as well.
Tell me all about it. What's up with the rainbow prophecy? What's going on with that?
The rainbow prophecy is I'm not sure if it's Lakota or if it's Apache. I don't know which line it is. It's a rainbow because so many tribes share this prophecy, but it is the prophecy that moving forward in the new age, we all have to unify regardless of color, nationality, religion. It is a movement that kind of like the One World movement that Patrick does. Patrick's actually part of this movement. So is Chief Phil Lane. And what it does is it's talking about reuniting Turtle Island and, reclaiming it, but reclaiming it for everybody, because we all, in order to win this battle, we all kind of like the pagan solidarity movement that you're showing there. We have to come together and unite. And it's a very, very interesting movement that I've been working with. And I love it a lot. I love the message. I love what it's bringing to the table and how it's uniting people. And I find it fascinating that, these people that have been marginalized so much still can come up and say it's all about unity and uniting people. And I think that's an incredible thing, so. And also Wayne Snellgrove is back stateside. I'm hoping to get him back on and inside the Sacred Circle. He's been going through some health issues, but hopefully we can get him back inside the Sacred Circle too. And he talks about, how we have to be unified as people together, and stop the colonial mindset that we're all separate.
Mm-hmm. I think I interviewed Oberon Zell a couple weeks back, and I think he said it best when he said, "We all hang together, or we hang alone."
Yeah. Well, it's no, it's true. Well, it's even in our Constitution. United we stand. Divided we fall.
Right.
We really have to come together as a country and just stop fighting over stupid things and pay attention to what needs to be paid attention to, because like anything else, you have to do the work, and we have to do the work for the environment, to make sure we're doing the right thing for the environment. That's a big thing right now. Our children are, we've got a lot of work to do as a country overall. And we need to come together on that, you know, because who's suffering, and Wayne says it all the time, that the choices that we make today affect the next 7 generations out, and that's important, so whatever you decide to do today is going to affect your next 7 generations. And what do we want to do? We don't want to make things the same or worse. We want to make it better. So, we have a choice. And right now, without Mother Earth, it doesn't matter what political side of the arena you're in. you know, if we have no trees, we have no oxygen. If we have no clean water, there is no life. So, and if we can't tell that Mother Nature is starting to fight back, then we need a serious reality check.
Definitely fighting back. I mean, there's all kinds of tornadoes and storms, and it's just wacky these days. I hear, see.
Yeah, like all kinds of weird weather that doesn't usually happen in places, and it's happening, like things that are unheard of. We've even had a couple of shakeups here in the Granite State. Nothing major. I think the most was a 4 something further down south from where I am, but things are shaking up, and the earth can only handle so much abuse, you know. And something, and that's my first, to me, it's the environment, the animals, the planet, and the kids. I don't care what religion or political party you're in, or that's irrelevant to me. We all need to come together and do the right thing. It's about doing the right thing.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to do the right thing. There's, well, the message today is to listen to the wisdom of your heart. How do you listen to your own wisdom and your own heart? I mean, it's kind of like just having morals and values. Like, make good decisions. Don't make fuzzy ones.
Well, like anything else, you have to take the time to listen to yourself. We get so wrapped up in social media. And that was another thing. I needed a break from the social media because it was just getting back to a point where my feed was a lot of the negative and the chaotic stuff. And I was like, oh, time to step it back, because I can't go down these rabbit holes and maintain my, I call it chi, but to maintain my mindset, you know what I mean? So, and because it takes work, and whenever I get that way, I know it's time for me to push back. And I call it going dark, but I don't mean dark in a sense like sinister. I mean like going within. And I got in touch with nature. I went to the ocean. I went into the woods because we had some beautiful nice weather up here in the 50s. And I was able to get outside and just reconnect, because around this time of year, especially by March, especially if you live anywhere north in this country, winter likes to try and hang on. And by March, I need to get outside. I'm starting to get what they call cabin fever, I guess, or stir crazy. And it affects my mood. It affects my mindset. I'm over just, it's cold. Right now it was 50 yesterday or 45, and today it's 20 and snowing. It starts to get to you, and everybody else is seeing signs of spring. Like Jim was posting pictures of flowers coming up in his garden. I'm like, and here I still got, now I got the snow out there again, so it gets frustrating. So I have to pull back, and I have to reconnect, especially I have to be near water. That is my serenity. I go down by the river, the ocean, lake, whatever it is. I have to be near that water or near the woods. And I just sit and listen to Mother Nature and myself. And that's how you learn what's in your heart.
All right. Quick commercial break. We'll be right back with Mind, Body, and Soul.
with Joanne and the Lone Wolf.
I am your hostess, Lola Stardust, and I like to do a disclaimer before each show. We do partake in wine. Some people may find that makes us a little loose-lipped and a little tipsy. If you do not enjoy that, there's this beautiful thing in the corner called an X. You can X out and not watch us. Another episode of Witches and Wine. I am your hostess, Lola Stardust, and this is the show where we talk about witchy stuff and we drink wine. Clink and drink. Clink and drink, Oberon.
All right.
I hope you're a fan of Witches and Wine now, because witches and water.
Butter.
So if any of our viewers would like to be a guest on our show or have any questions about what we do, please email us at
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
What was that?
That was crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
Witches and Wine is now streaming on the Witchcraft TV platform, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. and Fridays at 10 p.m.
Welcome back. Mind, Body, and Soul with Joanne and the Lone Wolf. If you would like an oracle reading, go ahead and put it in the comments section. We'd be happy to accommodate that for the platform today. Listening to your own self is the topic. That is today's oracle. Yeah, I really need to talk to myself. And I think that plays into a lot of, it can play into what they call shadow work these days. And I think shadow work is kind of a new term, but an old concept. I feel like talking to the self is something that's been going around, being done in different places for probably centuries. But the coined term of shadow work just seems to be taking foot, very popular. It started kind of catching ground, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And now it's a common term. Like, you hear people say that all the time. Well, you need to work on your shadow work, and I think there's a lot of Carl Jung involved in that. And what's your idea of Carl Jung and shadow work and talking to yourself?
Well, to know the shadow is to know the self. And a lot of people misconstrue that term shadow work. They think it's like, oh, we're going into the dark and sinister. Well, yes, we're all light and dark, right? You can't have one without the other. We're also human. And we all have aspects of ourselves that we need to work on. And when you don't work on these aspects, what happens is it manifests in your life in many different ways. Behavior, substance use, body aches and pains, mental illness, sometimes, your mind, depression, things like that, chemical imbalances, and you need to go inward and address those issues. If you don't address those issues, you're going to get more of that in your life, right? So if your outer world is a manifestation of what you have inside of you, who you are inside. And if you have a lot of toxic and a lot of anger and a lot of rage, you're going to find you're going to bring more of that to yourself, or you're going to find yourself around those situations. And the thing is, like usually, Don Miguel Ruiz says it the best. When someone is upset or insults you or is rude to you, it's not about you, it's about them. That's because they see something in you that that it upsets them, because they want that as well. But in order to achieve that, you have to go inward and look inside. And you have to be willing to admit that, hey, I can be a pretty nasty person, or I'm self-centered, or I need to work on gratitude, and that is a lot of what working with the shadow self is. It isn't about, going in and, yes, we all have dark shadows, don't get me wrong, but it's not like in a majority of the cases, it's not a situation where there's some evil entity inside of you trying to fight you. It's yourself. we all, self-reflection is hard, you know, self-reflection is hard. And being honest with ourselves is, we don't want to see ourselves as flawed. That again, that's that's our mindset. We want to see ourselves as, hey, I know what's going on. I understand everything, and finding that balance on self-criticism is hard, you know. Um, Finding that, the reason why I'm so angry is because, I had family situations going on that were making me that way. And addressing those hurts, those shadows, is really what made changes in my life to bring me to the perspective where I am now, instead of an angry, cranky, bitchy person, for lack of a better word, and, hating on others that are happy and joyful. you know let's cut to the chase. And if you can't be happy for somebody else's progress, that's a big red flag. Like, that's you telling me, Joanne, I got my TV, I got my license under this, and things are moving along, and instead of me being happy for you, I get angry and jealous. What does that say? That's not about you. You're doing the work, right? You're doing what you need to do to get to that place. That's about me. And that's about me. If I'm doing that, it's because I'm not taking those steps. I'm unable to, for whatever reason. I don't know how, or I wish I could, but I can't. There's 100 different reasons why we think that way. And we have to realize that when we're unhappy with others, a lot of times it's because we're unhappy with ourselves.
So if people are doing well and you're just kind of like being negative about it, maybe some jealousy, like if you're genuinely happy for them, I almost feel like that frequency of you being happy for them is better for you, because it'll attract more, like, better things to come for you instead of negativity. It's kind of like you are what you think about, how powerful really is the mind. Like, I am so like novice when it comes to like the power of the mind, the power of the will, right? And particularly with like contemporary witchcraft, like how much mind control is important when you weave a spell or you try to alter reality to change it in conformity
Well,
with.
any good mentor will tell you, and Mark Angelo, my friend that's coming on, the next Inside the Sacred Circle, will be the first to tell you, never cast or go into circle when you're in a bad mindset. Because you affect the energy of the whole circle, but you're also affecting the energy that you're putting out. If you're putting out angry energy, it's going to reflect back to you. Like I said, our outer worlds are manifestations of who we are inside. If I'm negative, I'm going to be surrounded by negative. I learned that just playing with my Facebook feed. If I'm reading nothing but controversy and whatever, more of that is going to come up on my feed, right? That algorithm's going to say, hey, she likes to hear this. But when I step away and I limit my time and I change around what I look at, what I'm looking at on my feed changes as well. And that goes back to Wayne Dyer. You know what I mean? He was, I think, the first person that said that years ago, back in the 80s and 90s, that when you look at when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. It's all in a matter of perspective. And, that's why I love this deck, raise your vibration, because that's what it's about. You want to align with, you're going to bring more of that energy. Like attracts like, right? Or also, your tribe sets the vibe. You see it, even in psychology and development, human development. You see that our surroundings have a big part in how we become as adults and how we are in life. We are products of our surroundings and the people that we're with, you know, guilt by association, that type of thing. Remember when your parents would say, hey, don't hang out with that person, they're trouble,
Mhm.
because if you're in that group, you're going to be associated with trouble. I mean, as witches, we're a little bit rebellious on that, but you get my drift. Your tribe sets your vibe. And what I have done over the last 5 years is I decided to surround myself with uplifting people instead of getting upset when I, like, why, they get to do that and whatever. Instead of looking at it from that perspective, I look at it as like, wow, I would like to achieve that kind of zen in my world. How do I do that? And I try to learn from those people and build relationships. And over since 2020, the pandemic, I have, especially with the divine feminine, because we're hard. We're hard. The females are hard. I'm not gonna lie. We're the worst. We should be uplifting each other, and that doesn't happen a lot of the time. And I wanted to build strong, powerful feminine relationships. And that's where people like Briege and Christina Marvel came in. I met your friend Michelle there that you're working with. And I'm embracing Divana Wolf, Yesha Matthews. I'm embracing the divine power of women, you know. Um, I've been working with Temple of Miriam and Dr. Jeremy with Kabbalah, and that has helped me quite a bit. To look inside and address my issues, you know, because I was angry, not at people so much. I was angry at myself, but that inner anger shows outward in my world, you
No,
know.
I recently had an interview with Christopher Penzak from
I
Temple of
saw
Witchcraft
that, so good.
out there in Salem, New Hampshire. And you mentioned Kabbalah, and the conversation came up that a lot of some of his curriculum in his lessons revolve around Kabbalah. So just kind of putting that out there.
Yep,
I
tree of life and how things interact and interplay. And I'm actually learning the Kabbalistic meaning of the Rider Waite deck through the Temple of Miriam, and it's really interesting because it looks at the tarot as a journey, but on a different level than a traditional tarot read. You're looking at it as your own enlightenment, your own personal, at this stage, you've achieved this. When you get this card, you're at this stage of, the tree of knowledge, or the tree of life. And it's a beautiful thing. Every month we do a couple of cards. Um, And I'll tell you that group over at Temple of Miriam is a wonderful, wonderful group. Hopefully, we can get them to send some of their stuff to Witchcraft TV, because I can't say enough about Dr. Jeremy and Hakam Leah.
Mhm.
As a group. I mean, when you work with them, like they can tell I'm off just by my posts, and they'll be the first one in my inbox to say, "Hey, Joanne, is everything okay? Are you on keel?" And I can be honest and I can say, I'm angry today. I lost a good friend who had a child with severe special needs. And I was angry with the God creator, because why? Why this person? And why not, of all the people you could take, why? And they noticed that and they helped me work through it, and that's really big in the spiritual community.
When people put posting on social media, little comments, or they're feeling bad, or they just like talking negative, or this and that, it's kind of like I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's just working with pagan media or if it's just an actual change, but I seldom post negative things on social media,
No, I
because I
don't
just feel
either.
like it doesn't do anything constructive. It
No,
just and if you're constantly putting that out to the
you're
the
going to get
world,
more.
Yeah, you're going to get more. So the whole, and you mentioned like attracts like, and like attracts like is definitely like an occult teaching. I'm not sure if I'm pretty sure it's intertwined somewhere with hermetics. So yeah, whatever you put out in the universe is exactly what kind of situations that's going to manifest. So if you're just constantly,
But as leaders in the pagan community, you're held to a higher standard.
right?
And is my and I always say my way of dealing with what's going on in the world right now. Yes, I'm angry at a lot of things, but what is that going to do? I look at it as, what am I actually doing to make a difference about it? And that's why I wanted to do things like this to help, give people ideas how to get through these times in healthy ways, for one, and to lead by example. You know, this is the kind of world I want to see. This is how people should see. And I know people in all walks of life and religions that hold that to themselves, right? Not just pagans. I know some really good Christian people who follow that rhetoric, that they don't judge a book by its cover. And some of them, believe it or not, watch me when I'm on Witchcraft TV, and you don't hear them saying anything derogatory. Sometimes they even ask for a reading. Do you get where I'm going? We're not going to, if we put, it's paradoxical at that point. If you're putting out hate with hate, you're doing exactly what you're complaining about. And to me, that doesn't make sense. And also, in my line of work, I can, I have to hold a neutral point to a degree. I have to do my social justice and stand for it. But I also have to, if somebody who's angry and upset and on a political side I don't agree with comes to me for help, I can't tell them, no, I'm not going to help you. It doesn't work like that. It's not selective mental health. I have to help everybody, and hopefully make a change. And if it doesn't work, then I can maybe refer them to somebody else. But you have to put out there what you want to see, and I'm a firm believer of that. And that's the way I've been taking it. I work with at-risk youth in the community. I do crisis calls. Everybody knows that if you're in crisis, you can go to my inbox and I will sit with you and hold space until you feel better. I do that for a lot of people. My inbox has been very busy lately because a lot of people are struggling. People that you wouldn't normally think of that struggle, and and first responders and veterans. I always have my, if they're in crisis or they feel like they need help, I will listen. And that is how I give back to the community. And trying to put messages out here, helping with Witchcraft TV to get the message out there. I had to sit back and reflect on a lot of it too. Was all these different movements, pagan solidarity. I'm on the Witchcraft TV board, and I'm like, all right, I got a lot of these things going on plus my things, and I felt myself starting to get wrapped up in that whole, I don't know, thing out there. And I'm like, I don't have to do everything. You know what I mean? I don't have to join every pagan solidarity. I can support it on my level. I don't have to be part of the committee. I'm working on Witchcraft TV. I believe in that. I believe this is a great platform for people to learn from. That's, and that's good for me. So I had to like rein myself back, and that's okay sometimes too. We don't have to get on every movement out there. You do what you can. And sometimes doing what you can is just recycling plastic bottles. That's helping the environment. We're not all called to be activists, on the front lines. It's how you live your daily life as a person is what ultimately matters.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joanne, we're just about at the bottom of the hour. Do you have any parting words of wisdom with today's oracle of trusting the wisdom within?
Well, yes. What I want everybody to do that's listening or listening in the the archives later on is to take a moment every day. And you know my thing. All you need is 20 seconds, right? To just get out there, even if it's just opening your window because it's freezing out, and just breathe and listen. I even do 20 seconds of Zen videos for people that need them. You need one? I'll send you a great 20 seconds of waterfall, ocean, something. And just breathe and take a moment to just step back and listen. Listen to the ocean, listen to the wind, listen, and you will start to hear your inner song come out. Because self care right now is important. It's important. You need to limit the social media time. You need to watch the content that you're taking in. You need to surround yourself with uplifting, positive people. You need to learn from credible sources and people that know what they're doing. You don't want to just, if you're a seeker, make sure, we have a lot of people on Inside the Sacred Circle. I think one of Harold's friends put together a list of people that you can go to if you want to learn a particular tradition and you need more spiritual help. Um, you know, get a reading if you need a reading from someone to help guide you in a direction to go. But really, right now, the message is to just step back and breathe and don't panic. We're all panicking that, over we don't even know what. We don't even have a thing that we want to panic on. And I'll pull a last card for us to see what we should exit with. And I'll use the Wisdom of the Oracle deck by Colette Baron Reed. She's another great person, puts out a lot of good decks. And I want everybody to try and stay in a high vibration. I want everybody to try and not be positive all the time. That's not realistic. We're not all love and light here. I get angry. But when you get angry, instead of lashing out, maybe pull back and look inside and say, why am I feeling this way? What's triggering this? Where am I feeling this in my body? Is it in my head? Is it my heart, my stomach? What is my body telling me? Is it a person? Is it a place? What set me off? Journal. Because this is what's going to get you through. And let's see, the Oracle says a leg up. And look at that. That looks like the strength card to me, right? A leg up. And there's the polar bear. And she's helping the little baby up there and climbing up. Sometimes we need to go to our elders or to somebody that knows a little bit better to help us get through. You're not alone out there, See the little polar bear? He's asking mom for help, right? The big polar bear. Sometimes that's what we have to do as people. We have to go out there and we have to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. If you don't know what to do, there's somebody out there that can help you that's more experienced. There's elders out there that are willing to work with you. We're everywhere. There's a lot of us that are committed to helping people through this in one way, shape, or form. Not all in the same way. We all do it differently. Harold has his station and his mission. I do what I do. Jim has his herbs and his practices that he does. We all have our individual ways of bringing light into the darkness and illuminating the shadow. But you have to do the work. There's no slacking. You can't not address it, because the more you don't address it, the more it's going to fester and grow. You have to go into those places and release those hurts and face them. I had to face the fact that my family is not really my family. After my dad died, I lost pretty much my family, and I had to deal with that. And it was tough. It was tough. It made me angry. I'd see Christmas time was the worst. All these families together and, all this family, and I would get angry. Not at those families, but, the anger was more at myself. What did I do wrong? And, and I didn't do anything wrong. I was a kid, and you have to face those things, and it hurts. And I shed a lot of tears, and I gritted a lot of teeth, and I annoyed a lot of mentors. And, do what you do. But seriously, we're better together. A leg up. Unity.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for Mind, Body, and Soul right here on www.witchcrafttv.online, where we are fair representation for all pagan witch and magic past. Make sure to check us out next Monday, same channel right here. And we have some really cool, another cool festival fun show coming up, hopefully, with Pagan Unity Festival. So keep it right here, and I'm going to close with that commercial.
Merry meet and welcome to Festival Fun on Witchcraft TV, where we talk about paganism, witchcraft, spiritual festivals, conventions, and other gatherings. These events are a wonderful way to learn about magical practices, to participate in rituals, and meet like-minded people. It's a whole lot of fun. With your host, A.C. Fisher and Harold Sanford Carter III. Welcome to Festival Fun.